He has the exclusive for Luka Doncic game-used shoes. Find out how he got it. All right, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Powers Sports Memorabilia Show. I'm your host, Matt Powers. Thank you again for joining me. If you guys can, please visit the website, powersportsmemorabilia.com. Also, give me a follow over there on Instagram at Powers Autographs. And if you like this video, you like this channel, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I definitely always appreciate it. Well, today we have a very cool guest. He's been on the show before, Mr. Tone Stakes from GameUseTone.com. He just signed a rather large exclusive deal with one of the NBA's best players for his game-used shoes. Let's go ahead and jump into the interview and find out who he did the deal with. Joining me again for another episode is Mr. Tone Stakes from Game Use Tone. And Tone, I was just scrolling through LinkedIn about a day or so ago, and I noticed you had a big post for a new athlete that you signed. Why don't you tell us about who that is and what it's for?
Yeah, we are excited to announce that we did a game-used shoe partnership with NBA superstar Luka Doncic. He's one of the guys that we think is going to be, an iconic player, assuming, no injuries or nothing like that. But he continues to just build out his global brand, which is key to us, right? The game used shoe business, it's big in the U.S., but it's massive internationally. And so we have to go after players that are big internationally. And Luka right now is the biggest player internationally. Obviously, outside of LeBron, I don't want to take anything away from King James, but outside of LeBron, he is the next biggest player out there.
So I talk about this on my show all the time about Luka. I personally think he is, if not already, the next LeBron as far as the best player in the NBA. Now, that's completely, anybody can make an argument either way.
Right.
But I think what we saw in the playoffs was just this guy just emerging and putting up triple doubles in the NBA in the playoffs, and we just don't see that. Do you see that this guy is going to be a top 10 NBA player of all time? I mean, does he have that sort of potential?
Yeah, I think, I definitely don't want to get into those debates because those get very heated very fast about Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, where everybody fits in the scheme. But I definitely think that, Luka is one of those players that, with obviously there's so many variables that play into an NBA career, right? Injury is a key one. What other teammates you can get around you? I mean, there's so many variables, but assuming we can predict that Mark Cuban's going to continue to build a better team around Luka and keep him around. And Kristaps is obviously a great piece, and they have other great pieces already there. I think they could definitely be a contender for championships year after year, and he will definitely be in the MVP talks year after year. I mean, securing a triple-double is extremely hard, and I don't think people appreciate it enough because of guys like LeBron and guys like Russell Westbrook and guys like that can do triple doubles, but it's extremely hard. You ask the rest of the NBA players and they'll tell you like that's an amazing feat in one game, let alone to do it multiple times. And then when you talk about the playoffs and adding those elements to the playoffs, now you're talking about a player who on the brightest stage in the most stressful situations playing their A-plus game. That doesn't happen very often, right? And I'm not going to talk about the players that don't show up in the playoffs because you can research that. But he in his time has shown that he's a guy that can do that. And so obviously, man, I hope because of our partnership that turns out well. But not even just for that, also because I think the NBA does need those players that continually excite the fan base. And once again, I go to that. There are so many amazing players that some of these elite super players kind of eclipse them, So you get phenomenal players that don't get their due justice because they're not scoring 35 and getting 10 and 15, a game. Because of that, these guys like Luka, like LeBron, kind of overshadow those players. But there's so many amazing talents in the NBA. I absolutely love the game.
So this deal is just for shoes, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because I was just going to say that the teams own the jerseys. So the players do not own their jerseys. So whenever a player gives out a jersey, technically he's not supposed to. So we don't have the rights. No company, whether they have any type of exclusive game used, it's only for shoes. They do not have the rights through any jerseys. And so the players within the NBA players bargaining agreement, right? They have certain parameters of what they do own access to, and shoes is one of the things they do.
So talk about this deal and share with me, what you can. But I'm just
Yeah.
curious how a deal of this magnitude starts off. Like, can you walk us through like
Yeah.
the process of how this deal, like, from the infant stages to the
For
beginning
sure.
to how it actually gets finalized?
Yeah, no, and man, I am one of those guys that's always looking to help out other companies, right? So I look at it like, look, I have been able to secure the deal with Luka, but there are so many other partnerships available for players, and right, and obviously we're all competing against Panini and Fanatics and Upper Deck and those large companies that have an amazing buyers capability, right? They have tremendous funding behind them to allow that to happen. I'm not that guy, right? My situation is just building a value proposition that is advantageous for the players, and so that's what we do, right? So to start this off, you have to find out who the individual is that makes those decisions for the players. As people always assume it's the agent. It's not always the agent. Agents handle a lot of stuff, but then sometimes there's marketing agencies that are on board. Sometimes there's individual business managers. Sometimes it's a variety of individuals. Sometimes it's mom, dad, cousin, uncle, whoever is the key decision maker for the player. Sometimes the players directly. You have to get to those people. You have to get through the gatekeepers to get to those people, right? So we found the individuals that are in charge of this for Luka. He works through. His mom handles a lot of his business, and she guided us to the team that she wanted us to have this conversation with. We start the conversation explaining what our business is, because game used itself has always been a throw-in with the autograph memorabilia or the trading card deals. Because those companies have always just required, and I was at Panini and Upper Deck, so I know this because we did these. You would just throw it into the lump sum because you got your deal with the players was so large, hundreds of thousands of dollars for a lot of these top players. So because of that, you just threw in game used. At that time, the players didn't know the value of the game used business. Now, thanks to my partner, Migrate is one of my partners that we do all of our game used shoes through Migrate. They're all authenticated through Migrate, who once again, I believe is one of the top globally for authentication of game used, especially in basketball. They have built out with the NBA auctions. They have a partnership with the NBA for all of the jerseys, and so for some of the jerseys that the team supply to the NBA. So because of that, they've shown the players in real dollars what these things are going for, right? Here's what these items are. Now, that money that goes into the pool for the split between the NBA and the NBPA. So the players are getting a portion of that pool when those jerseys sell on NBA auctions. But that really helped to create kind of the baseline for people to understand what game used had value. The players realized they didn't own the jerseys, but they realized they had access to their shoes. And so that became kind of the basis for me to explain to, Luka's team, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is what we've done already. And, we've been in existence for 2.5 years under my business, my game used tone. And we've done close to $1 million in sales of game used shoes globally. And so those are all parameters to have that conversation, explain what we know of the market. We had been securing some shoes from Luka through other channels, Luka giving them out to people or Luka's team selling them and not knowing the market, what it was. We were then taking them, helping those buyers and their investment and almost double most of the dollars they were doing. And so we had that transparent conversation with Luka's team too, because nobody, none of the players want to be the people who are not getting the maximum value for their items, especially because Luka's the one adding value to that item, right? James Harden, LeBron James, whoever. Those are the guys that are adding value. The shoe from Nike or Adidas or Puma or whoever is a phenomenal shoe. However, you put that same shoe without the player wearing it, it doesn't have the same value. You put it on the player's feet now, all of a sudden you can photo match it, there has the value. So the players want to be able to maximize that return, right? Because the way I look at it is the players are their brand is what's adding the value to when people are selling these items, whether it's their just their name or autograph or just a shirt with their logo, their face on it, all of those things are adding value from that player. They should be able to maximize that. So we create that conversation, explain to them, and it took a while because, for a lot of people, being in business for 2.5 years isn't enough to stand up to Panini or Upper Deck or those type of companies. But I think what you're always doing is you're building off of uh, your what people know of you, right? So your reputation is a better term. What your reputation, what you have done in the market, what you're proven have done, what you have be able to prove, and then I think over time it's the relatability, how people trust you, what they think. Are you really not going to try and rip us off? Because a lot of times, especially in my space, when we're doing partnerships, they have to believe what I'm telling them is we're selling those items for, because we don't give them access to our buyers, right? Our buyers is our IP, that's our network. And so they have to trust us. We have to be able to show as much transparency as possible to build that trust. And so all of those things build up to getting to that conversation. So sorry for that long drawn out conversation. My bad.
No, you're good, Tone. So you bring up an interesting point there about the game used market. And, Giannis came out when he had a TikTok video a little while ago of him collecting cards. And obviously a lot of athletes are getting into collecting cards and their own cards,
Yeah.
Do you see, in your experience in the game used shoe market, do a lot of the other athletes collect each other's game used shoes? Is that big within their realm?
So they do right now. They're doing a lot of jerseys. You'll see the jersey swaps after the games where they'll actually change out jerseys and then they'll put them up in their game rooms and stuff. What we see is a lot of retired players, right? Because what happens is these retired players collect items over the course of their career. And this is why you see things like golden auctions where they'll do like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's, just like a lot of his inventory. And they go through this. Cal Ripken just did it, which was phenomenal, right? But a lot of these items, what happens is these players collect all these things over the course of their career, various memorabilia. And then at some point they present them to their children or grandchildren and say, hey, would you be interested in this stuff? And the children and grandchildren take a couple items, but they don't want thousands of pieces. So then they put them up for auction. We see right now what we're seeing is, especially with current NBA players, a lot of them will have some cards. They'll start to collect cards, over the years. Sometimes they have conversations with the Paninis or the Upper Decks or whoever they're doing a partnership with, and they'll say, hey, can you send me back 2 of those cards? Can you send me back whatever, those sort of. And obviously they have to be very mindful because they have to make sure everything goes into the product. So they have to, usually if they'll pull them out of a pack when they're running through kind of a box break early on to make sure that the coalition's working and stuff, they'll sometimes send those back to the players, but not normally. But then the players will start buying or having their managers and stuff buy some of their cards. I do know for a fact some of the cards that have sold pretty well have gone back to players that they're their cards. I can tell you that just because of my partnerships with the players. They'll tell me, hey, I'm looking at this card. What do you think? Where do you think that number should go? What's my walk away, type stuff. Just because I think they realize that the trading card market is not a fluke. And I agree. I don't, I definitely think there are some elements of bubble that will pop, but not to the effect that people believe that the whole market's going to tank. I think that when you start having the conversation that it's an investment along stocks and retirement and that type of stuff, I think that people are more mindful of it, and I think that it'll help to keep it going. So, there's no that.
So the 2020 NBA draft, apparently you've got, every single draft pick under your wing.
I wish it was that case. We have a lot. We do have a lot.
Aren't there some sort of laws against monopolies around here?
I can definitely tell you, we don't have, Anthony Edwards did a deal, a Panini exclusive deal. So his stuff is through Panini. And then LaMelo Ball, I believe, has done a deal with Fanatics. So we don't have those two, but we try to get just about everybody else outside of that.
You need to step your game up, Tone.
I need to step my dollars up as well.
Dollars, yes, yeah. So let's talk about the NBA draft for just a moment here, because this draft class, I guess, compared to last draft class, isn't going to be nearly as strong as people maybe are predicting. Zion and Ja and all those guys. That's just a fluke of a draft, But how do you go about making a decision about, hey, listen, we believe that this guy is going to be a Zion type or a Ja type, let's go after this guy. Is there certain criteria that you're looking for this particular player to meet?
Yeah, man, and it's very similar to trading cards, right? So when you look at like when trading card deals are done, they are doing it off of the basis for baseball example, right? They look at baseball prospectus, they look at Baseball America, they use the general public's um, belief in who the top players are, and that's who they go after and secure deals with. It's the same concept, right? We look at a lot of mock draft stuff from some of the top stuff, ESPN, NBA Draft.net. Like there's a lot of various, obviously the guys over at Draft Express, there's a lot of this type of stuff that says, hey, these are the top players in the draft, right? So we use the general public because look, I am not a GM of a team, right? I don't know, and truthfully, I don't think those guys all know exactly the best players either. But I don't do the research on every single player. What I know is I know what marketability is for NBA athletes. And so I can see just by working at Panini and Upper Deck over the years and seeing the sports memorabilia market for 15 plus years, I kind of see where the excitement goes, and that's where I focus, right? The guy we are the highest on right now, and this is, I know you like to know like who are the inside guys to know to collect. Denny Avdija is the guy who I think is going to be the best player in this draft.
Really?
Now for sure. He's the kid out of Israel. He played for Maccabi Tel Aviv. He is 18, I think, maybe 19. He is a superstar talent, man. And so what I look at once again is I look at the global market base. Do I think Anthony Edwards is a phenomenal player? For sure. He's going to be a great addition to a team. So is James Wiseman. So is LaMelo Ball, right? I like RJ Hampton. He's one of our guys too, and so there are players that I think add a lot of value, but I'm always looking at what the global landscape is.
Right.
For me, when I think of RJ Hampton, he's already built out a base in Australia and New Zealand. He's going to build out the base in the US, right? Denny Avdija has already built out a base all throughout Europe. He's already building that collectability. To me, when you look at a player like Anthony Edwards, he's built out the US. Not much beyond that, right? And once again, I'm not saying he's a spectacular talent. And we tried everything we could to work with him because I do think he's a spectacular talent. But I also think that there are players that have a global marketability that changes how my business, and speaking specifically to my business, how my business is viewed. And so we try to be mindful of all the elements that we know of that we try to take into account when we're going after deals. And obviously, we do deals with guys from Kentucky because Kentucky has a huge market. We try to get guys with Duke, obviously those schools go a lot bigger than, some of the other schools where there's top players, this Tyrese Halliburton's a phenomenal talent. Iowa State's not a huge global, collectability market. So he'll struggle with that, but he goes to New York and it's not going to matter. Right. So there's so many variables that play into it.
So you're basically looking at it as if a player on your scale is a 10 out of 10 in Europe or a 10 out of 10 in China. It doesn't really matter that maybe they're a 5 or 6 out of 10 in the USA because your market, your customer base is really big outside of the United States.
Yeah, man, I think there's so many variables that play into it, but the reality is we're listening to the market. We're not predicting it. We're not telling it what to do. We're just listening to the market, and we fail too, right? We pick guys that we go like, hey, we'll do a deal, and it doesn't play out, because the collectability is not there. There are go ahead, excuse me.
Yeah, who would you say is like your biggest fail? If you want to mention names, because we talk about all the positive stuff on here,
Yeah.
And I mean, we've all made mistakes on like cards and autographs and stuff we sit on for years,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to name names, but talk about like, what was that experience like when you're starting up your business and you're excited about a guy and the guy absolutely tanks? Obviously, you have a financial impact there too, but
for sure,
what's the process you go through when a guy tanks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough conversation, right? And because I have to tell the partnership, hey, we can't do this anymore. The way our partnerships are structured, we don't lock guys in for years and years at a time. We don't do it. And the reason why I don't do that is because I noticed when I was at Panini and Upper Deck, it got to a point where the guys didn't want to do the work anymore. They didn't want the partnership. So my type of partnership is like, I want to keep doing this business with you as long as you're enjoying it and it's working out for you. When it's done for you that day or that week, whatever it is, we're done. I don't, and same thing with Luka. And they would probably tell me not to say that. But the reality is that I don't want Luka to feel strong-armed into working with me. I want to every day show Luka and all of our players that we're doing everything we can to benefit the partnership. Not that we have you locked in for 2 years, and so if if it doesn't work out, whatever, we still made our money on you. I don't like those type of partnerships. I look at partnerships differently. And so to get back to your original point, or your question, is that there are definitely times where it didn't work out, where for whatever reason, the player doesn't play at the level they played at. The player's shoe choices are not highly collectible, and the players, I don't tell the players, hey, even if you don't have a deal with Jordan, wear Jordans because those are the most collectible. No, I do whatever works out for these guys.
So that's an interesting point that you just brought up right there, is the actual design of the shoe. Does that have or who they've signed with, does that have a massive impact on the actual resellability of that game use shoe? For example, if it's a Nike Jordan or whatnot, or a different brand.
Yeah, and it goes back to what those brands are doing globally to build out their brand, right? So like Puma's not a US based brand, right? So because of that, they have following in different countries. Same thing with Li Ning and Anta, and those there's various companies that have followings, but Jordan brand is by far, it's not even close, by far the most collectible brand, and obviously, Kyrie's and LeBron's, and there's certain types of shoes that have a higher following of collectability. And, I think the player exclusives really matter too. I believe, and I've had this debate before, I think Kyrie Irving's shoes were the first ones that really tried to bring out the uniqueness of player exclusives with just various, options and all these different things that added collectability. And I think LeBron jumped on that boat, and I think other players have kind of, saw that, oh, wow, there's a market for this if we create not just 3 styles, but 50 styles over a course of a year, and there's 20 of them are limited edition and 5 you can only get as a player or whatever. So all of that plays into the collectability, because a lot of my collectors, the people we work with, the buyers, they like certain styles. They like unique shoes. They like, if it was worn by the player on the 12th guy on the team, or if it was worn by the number 1 overall player, it still varies by what the shoes are, and so that plays into it too. So, and then other variables are like, obviously what the stats were in the game, if there's inscriptions on the shoes. A lot of my buyers don't like the shoes to be autographed on the shoes, and the reason is because over time, sometimes depending on the materials, it may open up a little bit.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that too, about the whole autographed shoe deal, and it's kind of similar to the trading cards. Some people don't prefer the rookie autograph cards, and some people prefer just the regular cards, and I find that interesting. I actually think it's kind of shifting a little bit towards where people are becoming more acceptable of the autographed card. Are you seeing that in the shoe market? I know you said that sometimes they don't like the shoes actually autographed, but I think they prefer them autographed, maybe with game used on there, as opposed to just autograph. Is that the case, or is it just no autograph at all?
And I think, the problem is this industry for so long has made guys write game used, and they're not game used, right? So what happens is, over the years, that has kind of tainted the high-end collectors, because somebody writes game used on it, and then they go through the process of photo matching them, and they're not game used. And the player wasn't trying to mislead anybody. The player is just being told by whoever had the shoes, hey, these are game used, right? Game used. So I think that's a tricky one. I think best case scenario, right? You get a game used photo match pair of shoes. You get an autographed authenticated pair of shoes, right? You get it where the autograph's authenticated, so and the autograph is in a spot where that it's not going to get disrupted over the years, right? As it continues. So, and that's a tricky thing, right? The guys always ask us like, hey, do you want us to autograph them? And just because I know how players will autograph them if somebody's not there, I just say, don't do it. And a lot of times too, these guys, Luka, perfect example, right? Some of the guys we work with, they have autograph exclusives with people, and I don't want to infringe on those at all, right? Because once again, we're all in this space together, and I don't want to take even 2 autographs from a guy who's supposed to be handling that exclusive, because I know he worked really hard and a lot of times paid a lot of money to have that exclusive.
So yeah, that's a good point right there too, is if a guy does have an exclusive, you don't want to step on that here, but you do want to still get him signed, let's say at some point, let's say for example, then you've got to do it the right way, and you've got to go through the proper channels to get that done.
For sure. And I can tell you right now, we have a deal with PJ Washington. PJ Washington for the Charlotte Hornets is doing an actual signing at a guy I know, a guy named Jimmy Mahan. He just started a shop in Kentucky and Lexington. And so he's doing a signing with PJ Washington. And I was like, hey, man, awesome. We've got some of his game used shoes. I'll send them down to you. If people are interested in them, they can buy them, have PJ Washington sign them right then and there, get them authenticated. They now have that through the proper channels. I'm all for that, man. I think that, as you and I both know, even when these guys have exclusives, sometimes they sign outside of their exclusive, parameters.
No.
And and I don't want to be a part of that by any means, man. So
I've never heard of
to.
such a thing. Athletes chasing the money, or athletes are human beings too, and they're that's why we got to keep the dollar around. We can't go to this cashless society, because how are people going to do all these signings on the side?
It'd be too covered. The transaction would be watched all the time.
Right. All right. Before I let you go here, last thing I want to talk about. I was going through your Instagram again, and I was talking to my buddy Darren Ravel last night.
Yeah.
And I was telling him I was going to talk to you, and he's like, "Hey, Sam, I'm not familiar with him," so I sent him your profile, and of course, Ravel is a huge Jordan guy.
Yes.
A huge shoe guy, and you've had these Jordan shoes on your Instagram that you were talking about. I forget what you said. They were called maybe the Forgotten Shoes, or talk about these ones real quick.
Yeah, for sure, man. I came across them through Instagram through the Goodwin brothers. They're an agency that represent a lot of elite players: DeMar DeRozan, Damian Lillard, Jaylen Brown. They've got a lot of guys. I mean, they were kind of original agents for Kevin Durant, LeBron James. I mean, they are one of the top agencies that's ever been in basketball. I mean, they've handled a lot of huge deals. They worked with a lot of the guys' shoe deals, and so Aaron Goodwin had these shoes, and I came across them on Instagram. He posted them around the Last Dance, and I reached out to him and I said, "Aaron, man, you got to let us try to photo match those shoes, man." And he's like, dude," he's like, "No chance." He's like, "I know where they came from. I know they're Jordans." He's like, I don't need any additional." I was like, "Look, I'm not saying for you. I'm saying for the billions of fans that love these shoes that didn't know they existed. They knew that these shoes came out. Like a lot of the diehard Jordan guys knew that the original banned shoes, and I use the word banned very loosely, and I'll tell you why. But the original banned shoes were not the Air Jordan ones that were eventually produced. They were these prototype shoes. So he finally lets me do it. I finally convince him. I go out, I photograph all the shoes. He's not giving them to me in his possession or my possession to take to my guys in New Jersey. No chance. Right. So I get them, I take them, I get photos of them all. Had a great conversation with Aaron. He is a spectacular individual. He's got some great stories. And so I took them back to my team, and we tried everything we could to photo match them. And it's not that they're not from those games. The problem is that you're talking about 1984 when he had these shoes, and the photography at that time, he only wore them in like 3 or 4 preseason games. And like it's across the court from a distance. You zoom in on it. My guys have the best technology available to photo match this stuff. They zoom in and it's horrible, right? So anyway, so we couldn't photo match them. However, there's 2 ways of authenticating. One is by proving it is, and the other way is by proving it's not. We couldn't prove it's not either. We looked at all the way that the styles match up, and they're handmade. They're handcrafted. So it wouldn't be likely that there'd be 25 pairs of these, right? So anyways, fast forward, we got them. I told Aaron, I was like, "Look, man, these are the grails of grails, man. For sneakerheads, forgive me, I don't use the word myself as a sneakerhead. I love sneakers, but sneakerheads are next level stuff. Right. But these, for sneakerheads, these are the grail for sure. So I'm trying to convince Aaron right now of putting them in various museums, in the MoMA in Los Angeles, the Smithsonian, and then all throughout the world, because I think that the visibility of it would be an impact that I think a lot of sneaker collectors would love to see. We're trying to make that happen. They're not my shoes, or else I would have done that already.
Sure you
but these are, man, these are the original shoes. So just to tell you what these shoes are, they are, when Nike was trying to convince Michael Jordan to join their brand, and you can read up the stories, he wasn't interested in Nike at the time. They presented these shoes and said, "This is what your shoes will be. Look, these what they'll look like." And they were like they're hybrid of like 3 different styles of shoes all brought together, because they kind of had a short deadline. And they brought these together, and he was not a fan of them. He wasn't a fan of them. And this is all the research I've done over the last 6 months about these shoes, because for me, I'm like, this is the coolest pair of shoes on the face of the earth. and to be connected to him was phenomenal. So anyways, we'll see how it all plays out, but I really hope that he'll allow us to do that because I think a lot of collectors would love to see it in person.
What do you think those shoes are worth? A dollar amount. It's got to be seven figures.
And complete transparency, man. I tried to convince Aaron to sell those. And we, just by having access to them, people reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, we had offers up to $2.5 million for these shoes." So
that's still cheap, I think.
For sure. My job was to present it. So I just presented it and said, "Hey, this is what we got." And he's like, "No, man, I'll hold on to them." I'm sure there's a number. I'm sure there's a number there. It's not 2.5, so it's going to be bigger than that. And, obviously we got interest from, the various auction houses about, "Hey, look, we can do all this stuff for them." And I was like, man, I know all those buyers, and I highly doubt you're finding them larger than us. I mean, and even the art industry is trying to say, "Hey, look, we can get, X amount of dollars for those." So I don't know if Aaron will ever sell them, but it was awesome to just be a part of it.
Yeah, that would be a tricky item to do at auction because you're just not sure what price you're going to get. And if you undersell that, I mean, there's no obviously getting the shoe back. It's not like it's a game used bad of a player where, you could potentially get another game or something like that. You'd have to find a one-on-one buyer and agree to a price, I think.
For sure. And that's kind of what our business is, right? So, I think that everybody, the common buyer, the high-end buyer looks for comparables, right? And so, there was some shoes that Jordan 1s that sold in auctions for like 600,000, 550, somewhere in that ballpark. And they were like, "Well, it's probably 2 times worth that or 3 times worth that." And I'm like, no. We're talking about the shoe that shifted the sneaker culture. If you take that concept out of the banning, which once again, I don't believe they were technically banned. I think that was all a marketing ploy with Nike and NBA, but we could talk about that a whole nother time.
Potentially, I agree. Yeah.
which, hey, I'm a fan of marketing, man. No problem. But
hey, every business is a marketing business.
Every business is a marketing business. But I do think that, it's these shoes changed the sneaker, not even just sneaker culture in general, man. When basketball shoes then became a global cool aspect, like obviously in certain neighborhoods, in certain cities, sneakers have always been a cool thing since, way in the 70s and 80s, right? But I mean, early 60s and 70s. But when you're talking about shoes now that change the way the entire globe looks at wearing sneakers as a fashion statement, I look at these things as an extreme art piece, a extreme culture piece where like you look at something and you go, that style of art changed how we've done art moving forward. That's what I think these shoes are. And that's why I think, I'm sure there's a number, but it's definitely not a couple $1 million.
Well, it's influence on rap. It's influence on other sports too. Yes. You see all the football athletes now that are, decorating their cleats and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, man, I do. I think it's one of those things where I think Aaron understands that he's got a historical piece, and it may be something he just holds on to for his lifetime. But I definitely think that people don't see the extreme value of it yet. They will. Somebody will come across. We've had conversations with like princes of like nations and stuff where they're like, "Man, those these guys have unlimited funds, obviously, but they are they're still kind of." Everybody's trying to get the best deal on it, and Aaron's just, it's not always interested in at this moment.
I always love when people say that, can you do a discount off of a price? It's like, do you want the best price or do you want the best percentage off? Because I think the price is fair. People love the percentage stuff. It's this mind game that they play, but
everybody wants to.
Yeah, if you were to buy that shoe for $5 million right now, somebody out there would pay for that, So.
Yeah, and obviously, me being the broker that we are, right? Our job is always to find the end buyer, right? We're not trying to find the person who's then going to maximize it and sell it to somebody else for more money, because now we've done a disservice for our
Well, you don't want to wholesale it out to someone who is then going to go sell it to someone else, and I think that's really an undervalued thing. Is we see this in real estate too, of course, is finding that right buyer for that particular house to maximize the value of the seller.
Yeah, no, I think you're always trying to do. I mean, you know this in your business, right? You could always go, okay, well, I'll sell 25 because I'm going to give a discount on it, and that person who takes the 25 is most likely not going to keep the 25. But you have to make sense out of for you personally in your business, where your profit margins make sense, right? And so I think a lot of times what happens is people all want to win the deal. And I'm like, look, I'm not trying to rip you off by no means. I'm not trying to, but I am trying to maximize the dollars for my partner, because if I don't do a good job, somebody else will,
Right.
So I'm always trying to maximize that. So we definitely have tough conversations sometimes.
Yeah. All right, Tone. Hey, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find all this Luka stuff, and because I'm sure people are going to be fighting over this like dogs. I mean, I was hoping you were going to have some with today, and honestly I was very disappointed that you didn't have it, but I understand. But go ahead and tell people where they can pick all this stuff up at.
Yeah, so a couple things. We have Game Use Tone is where I'm at on Instagram. I think it's NBA Game Use Tone, I think on Facebook, but GameUseTone.com. My partnership is with MyGray. We do an auction. We actually just put up an auction today for the draft, which will have 15 players or so from the draft on there. So MyGray does all our authentication. So MyGray.com, you can find out the majority of our stuff. We do have a lot of private stuff. The stuff like Luka, man, we have so many buyers and interested in that stuff. It's best just to email me. I'll put you on our VIP list, and I'll let you know when we got stuff. But a lot of times that stuff, like I said, we got those Game 4 game winner shoes. We sold those within about 5 minutes.
Can you tell me what they sold for or no?
I don't. And so the only reason why I say that is because, out of respect for our buyers, right? I don't like to talk about pricing after it's gone. Like the people that we presented it to, we only presented it to one, and he took it right away. But
of course he did.
Yeah, but we don't like to discuss that because, once again, I don't ever know if that person in the future looks to sell it, and if they do, I don't want that price.
You don't want to hinder them. Yeah, I get it.
I think that happens a lot with auctions. A lot of people buy stuff in auctions, and then they try to sell it, and they're like, I just saw it sold at such and such. But yeah, I mean, that's where you can find me. And Matt, a couple of things, man. One is, I truly appreciate you putting this content out for our network of interested people that are not even collectors, not even investors, but just people that love this industry. So thank you for that. Thanks for connecting me with Darren Ravel. I saw that he followed me on Instagram, so I'm excited.
Oh, you saw it? Nice.
I'm a fan of Darren, so I'm excited to hopefully be able to do something with him in the future too. So thank you very much.
Darren's great, man. So yeah, hook up with Darren. Darren's awesome, man. He's a big analytics guy, so maybe he can help you out with the analytics part of the game use business. I'm sure he's got some sort of spreadsheet for you already.
I want to see it. I'm in. But no, man, I truly do. I really appreciate the stuff you're putting out, man. And like I said, I try to catch as many videos as I can because I think it's good, dig down deep information that a lot of these collectors and stuff can really understand this industry better. So,
well, yeah, I appreciate. Darren and I were just talking about this. The stories is what makes sports so great, and
100%.
For somebody like you who's got way more stories in the game use stuff and insights into guys like Luka, this is the stuff that I think people are really interested in hearing about. So I always enjoy bringing people in, and I appreciate people taking time to do that because not everybody wants to do it, and it's super fun for me, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So.
I did, man. I appreciate it.
All right, Tone. I'll think of another topic, man. We'll get one up maybe first of the year or so. All right.
I'm in all the time.
All right, Tone. Thanks again, buddy.
All right, partner.
All right, see you, bud. Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining me for the interview with Tone. I hope you really enjoyed that one. Tone has a lot of great stories and a ton of insight into the game-used shoe market. So if you have questions on some stuff or looking to purchase any of the game use stuff that he has, you can go ahead and visit him on his website at GameUsedTone.com. And he's also over there on Instagram at GameUsedTone. Again, please feel free to like and subscribe if you like this sort of video and this sort of content. I definitely always appreciate that. If you can, visit the website, PowerSportsMemorabilia.com, and also give me a follow over there on Instagram at Powers Autographs. See you guys on the next episode.